B-boy. From the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East Coast to the West, B-boys worldwide. We supposed to be blessed, still a B-boy.
This week, we're heading to the East to talk to a female MC with more bars than most of the men, a true lyricist. You know her as part of the legendary Juggaknots crew. Welcome, my guest, Queen Herawin. What's up?
Peace, peace, peace. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for having me.
So do you remember the first time you heard hip-hop?
That it was necessarily a specific day that I recall, probably more time frame.
Sure.
Young, really young. I'd say my earliest memories that I can remember, maybe 7, 8, young, maybe about 7, 8, or even younger, maybe like 6, 7. Yeah.
So what were the first, handful of MCs that you really gravitated towards at that point?
At that point, honestly, my brothers were a major influence. They're older, so I would definitely say for me, KRS-One, Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, and as I start to think about those particular names, probably more like 8, 9. I mean, I wasn't that young, but it was around that time frame where those were more, as I got a little bit older, those were just more influential artists for me, as far as what I was hearing directly from my own interest, or more so through my brothers, and just being introduced to these particular artists who, continue to remain icons and legends in what we do and what we know as hip hop, and just that culture, what we do, basically.
Right. It's a reason it's looked upon as a golden era. So what point did you think, maybe I can do this? Did you start writing first, just freestyling? How did that start?
Definitely writing. I was 12 when I started writing. And as far as when I thought this was something of sincere interest, probably 13. It didn't take me long to really fall in love with what it was, and really get serious with it, 16.
So when I think of you, I think of obviously the Juggaknots, but the uniqueness of your flow. I don't think there's another female MC that I've heard that has that unique flow. Is that something that just came naturally? Is it something you kind of developed?
I'd like to hope so. I'd like to hope that it came natural and it developed and evolved as, through time, if anything. I mean, I think any artist, regardless of whatever specific media or discipline or genre, as you grow and develop as an artist, you learn more about what you're doing consciously and unconsciously, and then you sharpen the sword. So I think some things I did were natural and I was aware, and some things I was unaware of, and either it came to light as I had my own personal epiphanies as I practiced and experimented, and then having brothers in the realm of what we did together, sometimes it was pointed out, like, oh, that's pretty cool what you're doing there. And, maybe me, not even being aware of it, but doing it. So I think it was a combination of something natural, and then developing and honing and experimenting and observing. I mean, it's a process. It's definitely not linear.
Right. So talk about the formation of the Juggaknots, how that came together, those early days.
Yeah, so the formation probably, I would say, date back to, our parents, we're all actual siblings.
Yeah.
So I would say it started there. As far as the Juggaknots itself as a group collectively, that was more my brother Fever, shout out to Fever, who was the eldest out of us 3. He had been doing, before Juggaknots was Juggaknots, DJing, emceeing as well himself. So the inception really started with him planting the seed and his love for it, for hip hop, and being just in the Bronx friends environment, so his love for it and his exposure to, DJing and taking that on, really spearheaded what evolved into Juggaknots, what became Juggaknots. And then my other brother, Breeze, who's slightly younger than Fever, you know, they too really, that's the nucleus of who Juggaknots was at the time and still is. And then, you know, later on I attached or connected myself to that. But, you know, it was a process even in doing so. I had to step up what I was doing as an artist. And honestly, I was independent from Juggaknots, doing things and writing. Shout out to Gypsies and other things that I was affiliated with as I practiced and really developed my own artistry and found my own voice, indelible MCs, etc. And then we really came together as a strong force. But it was very organic the way it happened. Juggaknots existed with Fever, aka Kev Fever, Slim, and Breeze. And then, you know, like I said, I was there. You know, I was part of that experience just from observing, being a sibling, being a fan, being part of it. And then eventually when the time was right, like everything else, it just happened organically.
I'm sure there's pros and cons to being in a group with your siblings. What were some of the pros? What were some of the cons? Was it more, you know, was it more pros, more cons? Not that I'm looking for anything negative, but I'm sure there's certain dynamics when you're siblings that are different than if you're just, you know, friends.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the pros to a situation like that, you know, it's family. Sure. So there's a certain level of trust and genuine love and concern and support that will always be there despite whatever, you know, ups and downs that happen in any group dynamic, because you're dealing with different personalities, you're dealing with different egos, you're dealing with different artistic styles and voices, literally and figuratively speaking. So I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons in the long run, only because, you know, that's a part of your legacy. So you're making something that's not just about the artistry, but it's also about lineage. And I think that's one real distinction that sticks out for me.
Talk about the recording of the first record, Clear Blue Skies. You know, what's your memories from those sessions, putting that project together?
Sure. So again, I can't really take too much credit in regards to putting it together. I do have memories from it, but again, more so from an observational standpoint, a fan base. I remember going to the studio with my brothers, not all of the time, but certainly some of the time. At the time they were doing recording, from what I recall, Calliope Studios in New York, Chung King. I remember going to D&D Studios as well. So, I mean, major influence when you think about studios and the trajectory of how that has changed over time. There are some still real major studios, even because of COVID and things, how that shifted, and the whole conversation of major labels, which at the time they were on, versus independent labels or doing things at home. So I was really privy to seeing things done at a major level, just quality wise, as far as studios go. You know, you can't really ask for better than that. So that was a major influence as well. And seeing that, being part of that, was really inspiring. And then that's the studio part, you know, seeing my brothers at home, literally creating the music in the house, you know, before it went into the studio, seeing it from that real intimate standpoint. That's extremely unique. It's extremely unique, not just the production, but also the writing aspect. I actually interviewed my own brother just with his process of writing Breeze for a side thing that I do call the process sessions. I haven't done it in a while, but it's really about exploring the process of the artist and the steps that we don't see, the things that are involved that we don't get a chance to be part of. And, you know, looking through his book and just his process of writing and how that was. So, and how it's also shifted and evolved over time. So, you know, again, I can't say necessarily part of it, more part of the experience. But that played a major foundational role for me as far as just wanting to do things at another level, which is what they were doing at the time.
Well, one project that I know you were definitely a part of was the Use Your Confusion album. That's
Yeah,
my,
for sure.
I love that album, the vibe,
Thank you.
front to back. I love that album. Talk
Thanks.
about putting that album together.
Yeah, I think that, as you talk about the pros and cons of things, it was the first time that we really all came together for the first, with Clear Blue Skies. The re-release was put out, right. And there were some songs that I was on the re-release because I was part of that time frame. They just didn't necessarily evolve into a full-length project. So it was exciting for the re-release to come out because there were like little bits and pieces that showed evidence of me being there, but not really in that way. So that was also very special for me. So Use Your Confusion now was the first experience where it was a committed project where all of us were equally, if you want to say equally involved, pretty much, whether it was with the writing, the production, or just even the discussions of what we were doing creatively and making those decisions. And I think that the sound was very different than Clear Blue Skies because, again, like anything else, you add another ingredient or element, it's going to shift things. I think that there were some new fans because, I was an addition to it. And I think for the old fans, it was also a processing how that sound changed. I don't know whether that was for good or bad for some people, but it definitely was a different dynamic. I'm proud of the album. I think we all are. But I definitely think that it was a little bit of a shift just because musically it was a different sound. But overall, I think even from an administrative point, because Fever started to shift from not just doing the production predominantly, but also administrative parts. So, him collaborating and getting the Slick Rick, getting the Slick Rick collaborations, .x, so it also kind of expanded wings that way in an administrative way for the label and just us as a group collectively. So I'm really proud of the things that he did with that in that regard. So again, it's a shift, but definitely something that I think it overall expanded what Juggaknots does, who we are, what we represent, in the direction of where we want to go as a group collectively.
Will there ever be a new Juggaknots studio album? What are the chances?
Yeah, I definitely think so. As a matter of fact, earlier today, I was having this, with technology, I tend to call texting and DMing conversations as well, because it is a form of conversation, right? So I was having a conversation in cyber world about this particular topic. And I definitely think it will happen. I think the question is when, hopefully sooner than later. Time is always of the essence. You never know, no day is promised. But I do think it's something that's on the horizon for sure. The question is just when. So we've been having this discussion amongst ourselves. Currently, Breeze is working on some projects for himself solo, in addition to some other collaborations, as am I. So I think things have to settle a little bit with what we're doing, because in addition to music, we're all educators. We have full-time jobs as teachers. And so there's the combination of work, family, and then of course this, which is what we do and what we love as well as artists. So it's finding the time, but not that the interest is not there. For sure, I do think it's going to come.
And bringing up being an educator, you're also on the board of the Universal Hip Hop Museum, right?
Correct.
So talk about that.
Shout out to, Hip Hop Museum and Hip Hop Education Center, Martha Diaz, which was one of my main contact directly as far as that affiliation. Shout out to Rocky and everything that's happening developmentally with it. We're super excited. That opportunity really came through my relationship with Monroe College. I taught at Monroe College for some time, and there was a particular course that I was teaching, a hip-hop course, hip-hop like education. I can't remember exactly the name of the course right now offhand. It was basically a hip-hop course in context with history and inspiration. And within the syllabus, there's an affiliative part with the museum. And so that was the direct correlation initially with reaching out to Martha and us having the conversation of hip hop and curriculum and what has become, well, they have a hip hop timeline on the museum. And that was really a main inspiration for one of the aspects of the course that I was teaching. And so I took it and it evolved from a introductory into the course. Instead of using it just for that inspiration, it became like a midterm project that I gave my students. And my relationship with Martha just grew more and more from this timeline concept and the affiliation with the museum. And she really liked what I was doing. And the students did a really great job. And, you know, we shared what they created, which was inspired from the timeline, the museum, the hip hop museum. And so it became a real relationship. And so, you know, from there, we just continued to build and work. And I've done quite a bit curriculum wise with them and will continue to. That's family now. So it's been a great relationship. Very humbled to be a part of that and honored. And I'm excited to see where it goes as things continue to grow and evolve, especially with the physical building coming into place.
I know it's they're in construction right now, correct?
Correct.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out once that, you know, finally fruition, something long overdue to
For
have,
sure.
you know, hip hop culture have its own, you know, brick and mortar museum.
As it should.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think, you know, back in the 80s when I'm buying a new Big Daddy Kane tape or whatever, it would have blown my mind that one day there'd be, you know, college courses talking about hip hop related subjects. And that's great to see. You mentioned Slick Rick, Sadat X from Brand Nubian. I know on that record too, there was a big posse track at the end. So out of all the artists that you've got to personally work with, who was your favorite to collaborate with?
It's a great question. I'd have to say my brother. I'd have to say my brother, to be honest with you. I'm still in awe at what he does. I mean, I'm honored with everything and everyone that I've worked with. And I have some things that are coming up that I can't even really speak on, that I'm beyond ecstatic and humbled with where those collaborations are going. It's surreal. So there's some really exciting stuff to share soon. However, you know, I think Breeze is one of the most underrated, incredible MCs lyrically. And he continues to, you know, wow and amaze me. So, you know, this goes back to the question before where you asked about the pros and cons about working with family. And it's like, I've done some amazing collabs, but when it comes to just really feeling proud and, you know, to be able to be on a track with your brother and you both do what both do a great job, there's nothing better than that. You know, personally, it's like an excitement that's a little bit different just because it hits home different. So, you know, but yeah, I've collaborated with so many people that are just phenomenal within their own right. I was we're constantly doing these flashback Fridays or throwback Thursdays with Todd Phoenix and Star. You know, that was one of my favorite collaborations too, as far as the Kill Bill 3. But yeah, I would have to say Breeze. You know, it's just, I don't know. I'm still a fan. I still geek out when I hear one of his, you know, new verses. His voice is classic. And so I'm always down for that. And he's definitely on this new project too.
So one thing I ask everyone is show memories. Do you have any one or two crazy show stories? Everyone's got them.
Yeah. I have a few, I would say, but I'll keep them short. One of my favorite places, Chicago. Ended up living there years later. I just actually came back, relocated to New York about 2.5 years ago. Me performing there or us performing there had nothing directly to do with me living there at the time. That happened much years later. But Chicago was just like real, and the love and the real genuine respect and understanding of the culture of hip hop. It lives and really exists there, breathes there in a way that It's just very New York, but not New York. It's Chicago, but there's something synonymous. There's a very similar, it's like a cousin, you know, that you kind of just understand what it is. And they automatically, it just felt like home then, before it really became my home years later. So I think that that sense of warmth there and familiarity to a place that was not familiar at the time, that really resonated. Another one, Italy. We performed in Italy, and I mean, it was wild just to understand and see internationally, again, the love for hip hop there. And people were literally like, yo, can you sign my hand? They were signing Breeze's hand. And I mean, excuse me, the opposite. They were like, yo, can you sign my hand? And, you know, for autographs, it was surreal, really, really cool. You know, really dope show. And maybe London too. We had a really great time in London as well. So some really key shows. Note, you know, New York is home, you know, so you have those home shows, but those away shows, there's always something kind of special that you take from it.
Yeah, some of your solo stuff, like you had the album Metamorphosis. If you want to kind of talk about that and some of the newer stuff that you can speak on.
Sure. Sure. Did you have a specific question about Metamorphosis, or
just the creation? I'm always interested in, you know, memories of the sessions, memories of, you know, that era.
Sure. Metamorphosis for me was really special on a couple of levels. It was my first solo. It still is to date, as I'm currently working on my second. I think for me, it was important to step out independently and just show my ability to create a project independent from my brothers, even though there's the love and the support and everything, you know, for a long time. And I think still to an extent, depending on who you ask, Juggaknots for so long has been Breeze and Kev. Shout out to DJ Boo as well, of course. Shout out to Sugar Shadow as well. I mean, so many people who are also part of Juggaknots who aren't necessarily get that affiliation or name recognition right off the bat. Sam as well. But yeah, I think traditionally most people think of Juggaknots and think of my brothers. And that's fine. That's totally fine. That's the seed. So I'm never offended by that. But I think for me as an artist and also the youngest, you know, you never want to feel like you're just kind of, you know, coattailing it, like just attaching yourself to it that way. Instead, you want to feel solid and like you're just as equal a link as far as what you're contributing musically, artistically, etc. And so I think the Metamorphosis album was important for me from that regard, just to feel like, you know, I can hold my own musically as an artist. And it was a challenge to do that. Or a challenge that I wanted to really take on. And I feel good about that project. There was a major shift that was happening for me, not just artistically, but as a person, as a mother. I have a child. And so at the time she was really young. And with that also came the challenges of juggling life, music, studio, many nights. You know, she was in the studio sessions with me because she was with me and, you know, had no one, you know, to watch her, or she wanted to come or whatever it is, the dynamic. She was just part of that experience with me. Not that I even wanted her necessarily separated. You know, we're always together pretty much. So juggling motherhood and artistry. Shout out to all the mothers who do that on a daily basis. So there was that aspect of it, and how that was changing me, hence the word metamorphosis. Not to mention just some other personal things that were happening as, you know, in adulthood, in adulting, that I wanted to share and talk about those experiences. And so, I mean, it was definitely a major change. There were challenges too. You know, because of recognition, as far as people still getting a feel for who I was, production wise, that really opened up a major relationship with an amazing artist who did really like half of the album. Shout out to SingQ, who will always be dear to my heart. He actually recently passed away about a month ago. And that was really hard for me. I'm still kind of processing and digesting that, because without his artistry, without his commitment to the project, Metamorphosis wouldn't have happened, honestly. He believed in the project. He believed in me as an artist. He was extremely flexible with me in many ways that enabled the project to happen. Whether it was weird session hours like, yo, let's start at 10 p.m. and go to 2, 3, 4 in the morning because my daughter was asleep and I was able to put her down to bed, or whatever it was, flexibility wise, he was just always willing to work with me. Even financially at the time, I was like either not working or because I was staying home as a mom for a while. So it was like juggling that or part-time work. So, sometimes the bread wasn't there, the money wasn't there the way that it needed to be. And he was like, yo, let's work. So, and that's not every day that you find people who are willing to do that. So again, there will always be a sense of appreciation for him and what he did. And he was a major part of Metamorphosis happening, not just from a creative standpoint, but just a commitment standpoint and believing in the project and loving music just as much as me, if not more, which really helped to make that happen. So that's really kind of what that was. But it was a great project, I think, just to step out and get my feet wet in what this idea of taking on a whole project by yourself looked like and felt like. And it took a lot longer than I anticipated. But it happened. And sometimes that's how it goes. Yeah.
Right. So now I want to ask you some just basic hip hop questions.
Sure.
If you could only listen to one MC for the rest of your life, who would that be?
Oh man. I don't know if I can answer that question. I hate questions like this. To be really honest with you, I don't know if I can answer that question.
That's fine.
I don't know if that we'd have to circle back to that. That's very limiting for me. Initially, my mind thought Rakim, but I don't know if I could narrow it down to one. Ever. That's hard. Maybe myself, as narcissistic as that sounds, Jesus, that's a hard question. I don't know.
You're on an island, you can only bring 5 albums. What are those 5 albums?
Definitely Clear Blue Skies. I would bring Nas Illmatic. I'd bring, if we're only talking hip hop, because I love all genres of music, so that's really hard for me to say. I'll just keep it there since we're having this conversation. Only Built for Cuban Links. Infamous Mobb Deep. I bring Mobb Deep.
That's a great album.
It's an absolute classic.
Yeah.
You can't live without Shook One's Part 2. If I ever get married, that's on the wedding list song. Real talk. So that's okay. And then the last one, I think I'll switch it up. I'll probably bring, I'm gonna switch genres for a minute. I think I'll bring Miles Davis. I'll bring, I think it's, is it Blue and Green? I always mess up the name of that album, but it has like all my favorites of his on there. So What and everything. Yeah, I'll say that for now, but even that's an unfair question, but it's better than the first one.
My next one might be unfair then too. We're doing a this or that. I'm gonna give you 2 options. You got to pick the better option.
Of course, the choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that. You can get with this or you can get with that. You can get with.
So we're doing albums. Starting with Juggaknots, Clear Blue Skies, and the re-release. You can add those as one project, or the easier confusion.
Clear Blue re-release.
Public Enemy, Nation of Millions, or Fear of a Black Planet?
Fear of Black Planet.
Dr. Dre's The Chronic or Snoop's Doggy Style?
The Chronic.
Fuji's The Score or Lauryn Hill's Miseducation?
The Score.
Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory, or Midnight Marauders?
That was nasty. That was not nice. Maybe Low End Theory.
Eric B. and Rakim's Paid in Full, or Big Daddy Kane, Long Live the Kane?
Also disrespectful, and I refuse to answer that question.
That's fine.
Those are both coming. So I got to hijack one.
How about KRS-One's solo albums or as BDP?
BDP.
How about Eric Sermon's solo or EPMD?
EPMD.
Now here's one that has stumped people. Producers, DJ Premier or Pete Rock?
Disrespectful. Well, I hope to work with both of them, so I refuse to answer that question as well. I still have a future ahead of me. I ain't trying to play that game too.
That's fine. So lastly, this won't be hard. I'm just going to say an artist name and tell me the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that name.
Okay.
Brand Nubian.
Fresh.
How about Raw Digga?
Dope. These are going to be a lot of old school terms.
No, that's fine.
So proceed.
Punching Words.
Family.
How about Ice-T?
Wise.
Ah, that's a good one. Gangsta Boo.
Speechless. I'm tongue-tied.
How about your brother Breeze?
Innovative.
Method Man.
Transformative.
Company Flow.
Foundation.
Queen Latifah.
Inspiration.
Slick Rick.
Children's Story. Favorite joints ever.
Oof, classic. Kid Capri.
Yachty.
How about Lord Finesse?
Super talented.
So underrated. Not talked about enough, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
How about Talib Kweli?
Lyrical.
Couple more. Yo-Yo.
Blonde hair.
Arrested Development.
Pregnancy. I was pregnant with my daughter and saw them perform live. I'll never forget it. Yeah, I was like 8 months. Yeah.
Chino XL.
Braids.
Two more. Master Ace.
Grateful, because I did a project with him and it was so humbling. So grateful.
Another person who isn't talked about enough is Master
Oh,
Ace.
most definitely. Amazing. I mean, how much can you say about Ace? So much.
And finally, the kings themselves, Run DMC.
Church.
So do you have any pluggables to plug? Where can people get at you? What you got coming out? Hit them with everything.
Yeah, for sure. So right now, currently, go check that Anger song out. So I released Anger, it's the first single off of this upcoming project. Shout out to Beats by Solitaire as we talk about Chicago artist, producer, engineer. He's amazing. You can find him in Blue Island, Illinois. But yeah, go cop that, and you can get that digitally right now. So like, iTunes, Bandcamp. As far as the Instagram, that's always the best way to reach me. Honestly, better than Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Instagram, which is at the Queen Herawin, spelled HERAWIN. You can also find me through the Juggaknots /Matic IG. That's Juggaknots, JUGGAKNOTS. And upcoming projects, the next joint that's about to drop is produced by an amazing producer from Mount Vernon. Shout out to Money Earning Mount Vernon. His name is Neff Beats. People are loving it already, and it hasn't even come out yet. That's featuring Breeze Bruin of the Juggaknots. And I think the rest, I'll just kind of let it simmer. Some things are definitely bubbling in the pot. It's going to be a big pot. It's a lot of hot Scotch bonnet pepper going on in there. So just grateful. Thank you so much to you for this opportunity and sharing stories, spreading the word, and giving me difficult questions to answer. I appreciate that.
I know they're not always fair, but I'll put all that in the description too, so people can get to it. Thank you again. I truly appreciate, taking time to talk to me.
Again, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Yeah, have a great night.
Yeah, you too now. All right, peace.
Watching the clock, no stopping the clock, makeup. Time lost, times we fought, now it's vapor, dissipated. Hit the pavement on a new path, not sure if I can take it. The road long, not feeling strong, it's winding. If I get lost, Lord knows where someone find me. Blindside me, or wanna try me. In the garden, heart hardened like serpent, posing as servant. But if I purge vent, I'm vulnerable. And then my soul, it takes a toll, got me feeling old. Gray hair sprouting like tears dropping into crystal water pools. Sometimes it feels like time's a fucking ticking bomb. I sit back and think, what if I did this wrong? It got me wondering, no way to fix it all. Let it go, move on, or feel it all. Anger. Sometimes it feels like time's a fucking ticking bomb. I sit back and think, what if I did this wrong? It got me wondering, no way to fix it all. Let it go, move on, or feel it all. Anger. Muttering, smothered in my own mess, I'm covered in haystacks with moccasin. Gluttonous discovering more pain I'm shoveling. The manure sure to manicure this harvesting for all the hurt I've been harboring. Masochistic, pass my mask with some lipstick for societal sadistic dick to smear my lips with. That's how they wish it, sacrificial. Focus on fiscal before this ticking thing on my wrist throws. Sometimes it feels like time's a fucking ticking bomb. I sit back and think, what if I did this wrong? It got me wondering, no way to fix it all. Let it go, move on, or feel it all. Anger. Sometimes it feels like time's a fucking ticking bomb. I sit back and think, what if I did this wrong? It got me wondering, no way to fix it all. Let it go, move on, or feel it all. Anger. Feel it all. Feel it all. Anger.